Welcome to the Pulpit and Porch. I'm Tony Marr, and with me as always is my friend Robert Kell.
Hey everybody, we are so glad you're here. The Pulpit and Porch is where we kick back, put up our feet, and have real conversations about life, faith, growth, and maybe even a little sports and pop culture.
If you're looking for a perfectly polished sermon, you're probably in the wrong place.
Yeah, around here, it's more about those honest, heart-to-heart conversations, like the one you'd have on a front porch with good friends. Sometimes we stay on track, sometimes we take the scenic route.
And honestly, that's half the fun, isn't it? We dig into the highs, the lows, and all the in-betweens of living out your faith in real life. Along the way, we may pull up a few extra chairs and invite some friends onto the porch to share stories and ideas that just may change the way that you see things.
So whether you're chasing your purpose, building your faith, or just trying to live a little more fully, pull up a chair, grab some sweet tea, and join us. This is the Pulpit and Porch. We got a seat waiting for you.
Summer, summer, summertime. Don't just sit back and unwind.
I thought it was let's just sit back and unwind.
Is it let's just sit back and unwind?
I could be wrong. I'm the world's worst sometimes with songs like that.
I think it would make more sense to just sit back and unwind.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I do like that was a fun song. That was probably the last of the really good DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince.
Are you crazy?
I mean, I don't know that they turned out a lot
Getting
of good
jiggy with it.
Wasn't that on that album?
I have no idea. I don't know.
That would have been about that time. I mean, that would have been in the 90s, and then that might have been the next album.
The very first cassette tape that I ever bought was Huey Lewis and the News. But the second cassette tape that I ever bought was Beastie Boys. But the third cassette tape that I ever bought was DJ Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. He's the DJ, I'm the rapper. With Parents Just Don't Understand, Nightmare on My Street.
That had I Think I Could Beat Mike Tyson as well.
No, that was the next album. That was the next one, I think.
Yeah, I don't really have a good chronology of the Will Smith, Fresh Prince things, but album history
catalog.
I don't have it right there.
Discography is not ingrained in your memory.
It is not right there in the head, but yeah.
Man, I haven't seen you in a while. I've missed you.
It's been a long time.
It's been 3 weeks.
Yeah. And I mean, we are actually recording on a different day just because we both still have a lot of things coming up and going on. And so
I was out of town for a week. Then I was out of town again for another couple of days. Then
I had I'm getting old medical procedure.
Yeah, you had that happen last week.
Yeah.
And
then we're going to get to go see our kid who's touring the United States this week. And the best day he had available was our normal recording day. So yeah. So, and then you're back out of town.
Then I'm back gone again after that because it's summertime.
And that is it's such a complicated world. And I think that maybe, I won't get too deep into that, but it's complicated in church leadership. And if you're listening and you're going, nah, I get it, I'm in the middle of it. Hopefully we can maybe ease the anxiety, not raise it. And like we were today, 2 of our boys left for a mission trip, and we're standing in the parking lot, and there's 6 vans that are backing up. A couple of them have trailers and all these other things. And I'm watching them back up, and somebody said, "Oh, what are y'all doing?" And they got in a phone call. And they're like, "Oh, we're standing here, watching the vans back up. It's kind of exciting watching it happen." And I'm going, no, it is anxiety watching it happen. There is nothing these guys are driving me crazy. I'm going, there has to be a better way to do this. And so it was the van that was in the worst position. They said, why don't you find a way out? And the other 5 vans would just sit there and they would do a 19-point turn and I'm like, they almost hit 7 people when that car could have just driven out and gone up the street and pulled into another parking lot.
It's like that video game. You have to get the cars out of the
jam parking lot, and it was so exhausting. And then there were cars there in the parking lot that we should have just all left and made their life easier, but instead we're all standing there waving, and they're trying to drive around our cars, and it's not a very big parking lot on top of that, but it was just a lot. It was a whole lot, and it was stressful. But yeah, and so hopefully we don't do that to somebody's summer, but hopefully we can encourage and provide some direction.
I do have to say that we prayed for your boys and the whole team
Yeah.
from the church that's heading to the mission trip today, on the road right now, I
They
would
are.
say, right? But I do have to say, who planned this trip? Because who plans a missions trip to Georgia in the middle of summer?
So we're a network of churches, and so we have one student pastor. We have one person from what would be considered each department that oversees as the kind of the leader for the network. So we have one person that's like the family ministries person, and so the person that is a student pastor, and his view is dead week. So if somebody's a sports person, they would understand this. If they're not, they might be, what do you mean? What's dead week? And they take and they go through these things, and you sit there, and it's 2 weeks, the last week of June, the first week of July, and they take, and there's no sports allowed, none whatsoever, no sports. You cannot watch, or you cannot practice anything. So he's like, I will always do camp the first week of Dead Week, because it is a week that I know that my band kids are off. I know all my athletes are off. Everybody, there is no conflict. And if I tell parents, then they can't schedule vacations. And I'm like, well, they can, but
and they will,
and they will, and they do, and that's fine. But we also sent 68. I mean, our network, all three of our campuses are probably 700-ish kind of collective between the three campuses, and we sent 68 adults and students today.
That's incredible.
And inside of that, and so that is when they choose it.
I wasn't worried about the time. I was worried about the location,
But they always go south. We always go. We've done Atlanta. We're doing North Georgia this year. We've done Charlotte, Winston-Salem, things like that. And they always stay in the South, and they always do it like right in the middle of the summer. And
when I was a young, immature, very selfish, and very ignorant youth pastor, I planned a summer missions trip to Australia. We had our church supported some missionaries in Australia, lived right on the beach in Australia. And so I said, I want to go to Australia. I'm planning a mission trip to Australia. And we planned the whole thing. We fundraised the whole thing. We were all ready to go. And 2 months before we were supposed to go, the missionary that we supported there, that I'd organized everything through, was trimming a tree in his front yard. I would talk to this guy and planning things, and I would hear the waves crashing from his office. I was so excited, and he fell off of a tree and landed on a picket fence and broke his back and severed his vertebrae and almost paralyzed him for life. And so we had to cancel the trip, and then we postponed it. We just pushed it to the next year. And I had grown a little bit in that year, not much at all, but I had grown a little bit, matured a little bit, and we were doing all of this planning. It was going to cost us like $20,000 to do this trip. And so I asked him, I actually asked his wife, because he was still recovering. And I said, hey, let me just ask you, promise to answer me honestly. I said, this is costing us $25,000 to do this trip. What is better for your ministry organization? For me to bring 30 high school kids down there for a week to help you with stuff and do stuff there, or to just write you a check for $25,000 that it's going to cost us? And she said, you want me to be honest? I said, yes. She said, oh, just the $25,000 would help us so much more. She said, you guys don't help us at all down here. I said, it's work for us. It's one of the least productive weeks that we'll have all year when we have teams come down here.
Because Australia is not necessarily the safest, like there's a lot of very deadly animals.
Well, and they're just having, rather than doing the work that they would normally be doing, their missions work, they're having to babysit 30 people, including myself and my adults who don't know. But she said something that I thought was interesting. I said, well, then why don't you just say that? She said, because having 25 high schoolers go back to the United States with a heart for missions is worth its weight in gold.
Yeah. No, I think that's the whole thing. Like, it was really, they asked us, hey, do you want to write, if you want to write a letter to your child, hand it to a leader, write it, bring it in, hand it to a leader. They gave a list of a couple leaders. And on Wednesday, kind of middle of the week, we'll hand these letters to your kids. So Melissa and I both wrote letters, one to each of our boys. And in writing it, I told Melissa driving home, we were just talking today about the letters and things like that. And I said, I gave an encouragement, a challenge, and a prayer. And I was like, here's something I want to encourage. Here's how I want to encourage you in this. Here's something I want to challenge you with this week for you to kind of lean into. And here's a prayer I've got for you. And my hope and prayer on my side of it is that my boys come back more in love with Jesus and more in love with being a disciple that's making disciples than when they win. And I have some interesting thoughts sometimes around mission trips and camps and things like that. But I think what they said is so true. I mean, how do you send if you can send somebody off and it can inspire something that brings back, the thing that's always hard for me is that it feels very easy to go somewhere that I'm never going to see you again and be very selfless.
Absolutely.
How do you bring that back into the conversation? And so that is always the conversation I'm having. I'm like, okay, I get it.
The hardest people to talk to about our faith are our family and friends.
Yeah. Walk across the street to your neighbor and have just that they know you're a believer. They know you go to church. Maybe they go to church, maybe they don't, but you see them do a ton of things and they probably see you do a ton of things too. But you see them do a bunch of things. You're going, man, that's not very Jesus-y inside of how you're living and how you're doing and the problems that you've got or things like this. And how do you walk across the street and start to share the gospel with your neighbors? How do you live out these things in scripture with your neighbor, with the person at the grocery store that ends up being at the, the self-checkout or at the register you go through all the time, or, these different spaces that you bump into? That is so, like you said, it's so much harder. And so I'm always intrigued with, awesome, let's go on a youth mission trip. Let's go to a place that we can do A, B, C, and D. But the question just kind of comes down to, how do you take and move the needle to where what they get while they're there, that they bring that back and translate it into their life?
Yeah. We need to give a little bit of a disclaimer for this episode. We've talked about how we haven't seen each other in almost a month.
Long time.
When we recorded part 1 of this episode, it was in May. School was still in session, and we thought that we were being very proactive on what we were doing for our listeners, especially our listeners who were involved in vocational ministry, especially our listeners who are involved in vocational ministry inside the confines of the local church. Now we're sitting almost to the end of June when we're picking this back up. So a couple of things. Some of our listeners, if you're listening to this now, it's almost the end of June, and you may be thinking this is irrelevant to where I'm at. I don't think that it is, because as we're going to dive into some things that we're going to talk about in this episode, I think that it's some things that, as you're facing the second half of your summer, are maybe even more relevant now than they were at the beginning of summer. And so don't tune this episode out. The other thing that I want to say, the other disclaimer that I want to give, is that as we sat down to record this episode, neither one of us remembered where we left off on our last episode, and we had to go back and listen. It's literally
been a month.
It's been a month. We had to go back and listen to the last 5 minutes. So there's a very good likelihood that you or I, or both you and I, will tell stories that we told on the last episode. And if that happens,
please forgive us.
Just please, a little grace and mercy, because we're old. And I listened to our show twice already, once when we're recording it and once when I'm editing it. I very rarely go back and listen to it again because I don't want to hear my voice again. So
yeah, no, well, and I'm just usually consuming so much other content, trying to get ready for A, B, C, or D and whatever I've got going on. And I know what we talked about. And if I had a question on it, I would just call you or the guest. So I would just be like, hey, we were talking about this. Tell me more about that, because I'm working through this thing, and I would get a little more real life. A little more real life thing. But, we got through a couple of things last time. We got through the good, the bad, and we're kind of in this spot where we're getting to and talking about the hard of some things that we face. And, and it's this burnout, and, what's your summer identity, and are you just trying to survive in the summer? And so here's a question. In ministry for you, what did summer expose about maybe your leadership?
I think where we're faking it, where we've been faking it. you know, where we've been faking it. If summer comes around and if your leadership has just simply been running on adrenaline and caffeine, summer's going to out you. Summer's going to expose you. And so I think that we all have moments and times in ministry when we're just pedal to the metal and we're running on fumes. And if that's been you coming out of Easter, trying to get a good, strong end to the school year, if you've been faking it for the last few months, and by faking it, I don't mean your spiritual walk, I mean your energy.
Sure,
you've been running on fumes. Summer, you're going to crash out. It's going to out you.
I think for me, it exposes what really matters, which I think is saying a little bit of the same thing, but also just kind of hits in this spot of like you start to really get like you're going to find yourself frustrated with things in the summer. And if attendance is what you're frustrated about, attendance is what matters to you.
And if attendance is what matters to you, then you're going to be really hurting in summer.
Yeah, and and I just use that as one example. Like another, I mean, community groups. Community groups just aren't going to. I mean, I know people, and Melissa and I have done this a couple different ways. Like personally, we've pretty much always led groups. We're in a season right now. We're getting ready to launch something new. We've been in a season where we've been kind of attending, not leading one, And so we actually, in this semester, we're not even attending one. We're managing and kind of I'm doing like the job. I'm pastoring, I'm leading in those spaces. But we have done things where our group meets year round. And in the summer, like we don't necessarily do a study, or we don't show up and just open up the Bibles and work. It's like, hey, we may not meet every week in the summer, but we're going to meet 6 times in these 10 weeks, and we're going to play yard games, and we're going to cook out, and we're going to do some fun things. And then we've done things where we do like interest groups in the summer. Some people call them a different name. I can't remember right now off the top of my head, but and so like I've done a golf group. Melissa did a mom's group that you just kind of work in, and you do these things, and they'd meet at a park early in the morning or late in the afternoon, and all the kids would play, and they would just check on each other. And I did one where it was a guy at our church was running he was a golf pro, and he had his own training facility or teaching facility. And so we would go and sit at the table, and we would do like this men's group Bible study thing. And then he would open up the garage bays, and we would stand there and hit, or we'd go out onto the actual, if it was the weather, it was rain or something, or if it was nice, we'd go out onto the tee box, and we'd just use driving range, and he would turn on the equipment and do some fun stuff with us. And honestly, a few of us went back and paid him to get some golf lessons, but it was just this cool thing that he wanted to be in the Bible study because he went to our church, but he also wanted to kind of invest and do. And a bunch of us got to hang out. It was like 10 of us a week, and it was awesome.
That's so cool.
And a couple guys in our church were like working through like working their way on the tour. They were playing like the amateur circuit and things like that. And so they would come out sometimes when they were in town, and they would, get into the study with us, but also do that. And so I loved those spaces, but the expectation was that people are busy. And we're so much busier now. Back then, like there weren't a lot of travel ball. Like travel ball in 15 years has exploded.
Sure has.
And so now, I mean, I've got a good friend, a guy that you and I both know that just like my kid missed church this morning. One of mine did, to go play a baseball game before he went on his mission trip. And, a good friend of mine, and he was like, hey man, we should be there Sunday. We've been texting and just kind of catching up and things. And I just want to see how his summer was going, his family's doing. And he was just like, yeah, we should be there. But I also know how life goes, and things pop up, and people get sick, and people have to go take care of things. And sometimes your ox is in a ditch, or maybe a tournament popped up. And if my expectation was they didn't make it to church today, so now I'm angry, they must not like me, and I'm so in my feelings, like maybe it's not about you. And maybe there's some things that are broken. And I think you and I would say this, and I think, like, I'm not speaking to anybody else. I would say inside of my family, there's some things that are broken. And now that my kids are graduating and stuff, there's not a lot of things I can do to fix it because we've already done it all. I can't go back 10 years and change how I'm going to approach all of this. No. But what I can do is when they go, hey, did you love this? I said, I'll never regret seeing you play. I'll never regret being at a field with you, watching you do something you love, the sacrifice that took. But I do fear that it maybe subconsciously taught you a wrong priority. And that's kind of how I think about summer. I think it exposes what we really value. And does it start to give this deep down wrong priority thought?
So let me ask you this. I grew up in what people would call a mega church.
Yeah, you did.
And our pastor, our senior pastor, lead pastor, my whole life, one of the most influential men in my life. He did my ordination. He was someone who still to this day means the world to me. Our pastor, had a cabin on a lake in Minnesota. And every summer for 3 months, he would take a 3-month sabbatical.
Wow.
So June, July, and August, because in Clark County, we were off for 3 full months of summer. And he would go away. He would go to his cabin in Minnesota for 3 months. And we would have guest speakers, other people on staff, but you knew for 3 months of the year, Gene was not going to be teaching in the summer. And it wasn't a vacation. He was going and he was writing his sermon series and creative ideas and where the church was going and all of that for the next 9 months of the year during that time. But he was also fishing, and he was also hunting, and he was also hiking, and he was spiritually, emotionally, mentally preparing himself for the other 9 months of the ministry season. When he was there, he was full speed ahead. So with everything that you just talked about the priorities that we set, how do you feel about that? I know a lot of pastors that take at least a month, if not more, off in the summer every single year.
I have probably a broken view of this because I grew up in a space where I just don't ever remember our pastor not being at church. And you kind of navigate and work through some of these things and you go, man, how does that go? It's intriguing because I'm about to leave my 40s here soon, but you and I are both in our 40s. So when you talk back, I mean, you were a teenager, so 30 years ago?
Oh, yeah.
And so this is back
40 years ago,
30, 40 years ago. You go back to the 80s and 90s, technology was nothing close to what it is. So when he went away, he literally away.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe at a church that size and things.
He wasn't calling into staff meetings every week.
No, there was not really much of a way to do that. And so, I mean, I understand there was probably a speakerphone in the 80s and 90s, but it probably wasn't very good. And it was a much more complicated thing. So when he went away, he was away. And now that would be, so I think sometimes it's hard for me to think back and go, how do I feel about that versus how do I feel about it now? Now I'd be like, okay, so he goes away for a couple of months. I mean, I think we said this online. There was a season, 12 weeks, 2 sermon series. I taught 3 times. I mean, and I was at church, but I had 0 responsibilities on those weeks. And there was a lot of weeks, and it brought a great deal of healing and some things inside of some struggles in my heart and mind with where I'm at and what I'm doing and things like that. But I don't know that I would, honestly, I probably in the moment would have a ton of questions. I think and he wouldn't owe me this, I just would feel like being in ministry, I would love to just hear the real depths of it, more than just what you and I are talking about here of, it was a spiritual, mental, refreshing. I would love to hear more of that from him. So I don't know. I think I could probably drop either way on that.
But there is a component of summer that is designed for rest. It's why our school years stop during the summer.
What's funny is school, like school teachers, and I guess across the board, there is summer school with college and high school and elementary, but it's really the only profession that its job stops in the summer. But yet we treat summer, because kids are out of school, like everyone's job changes. Everybody's job changes just a little bit. I know doctors still have to get up and go, but you have a hard time getting appointments with your doctors sometimes because they're just not
going
around.
on vacation. Yeah, because it's summer.
And it's this, so there is this window. And so the question the thing I'm wrestling with, and this is part of a question that we've got here and some things that we've got in our things, but it's balancing this rest versus results mentality. And I don't do that well. And it's stuff we talk about that I'm trying to grow, or training to grow, to use John Mark Comer stuff. I'm training to grow in that space of like being able to rest more. But I don't understand but he didn't get 3 months off. But in anybody's mind in the world, they're gonna be going, but he wasn't there for 3 months. And I think that's the part we would all struggle with, because none of us can rest that way. And I think that's a hard thing, is like going, everyone needs different rest.
Yeah, and I would say that a healthy leader in September is more valuable than a packed room in July.
A healthy leader September through May.
But
there's probably not much he could do to make a July that much bigger.
And I think that most of us going into June are on fumes.
Coming out of Easter, Mother's Day, Memorial Day. Yeah, I mean,
and just the emotional weight of knowing that it doesn't matter how good you are, how much you work. People's vacation to Hawaii is more important than your sermon on Sunday.
And here's the thing, is that if you're a church of 10,000 people, you're still going to have 8,000 people. But if you're a church of 100 people and you get 70, like, your room looks empty. And you feel that weight, and then you feel the weight of, are people still going to be generous? Are people going to tithe? Or are they going to use their tithing dollars for an extra event or thing on their vacation?
Well, hopefully you're wise in your leadership, and you are spreading your budget dollars out to cover some of those lighter months that you're going to have in the summer.
Absolutely. I just think that, like, there's still that space of, how are you? I mean, sometimes, there's churches though, and we know this, there's churches that are here that it's all they can do. If the people who tithe weekly, for them to survive, and it's not that they're overspending, it's just kind of a hard thing.
Yeah, but you asked the question, how do you balance rest with results? And I think it's something that we've talked about so many times before on the show. It's that we have to redefine what results look like. And so our results in the summer, our measures of success in the summer, maybe shift from what they are in the rest of the year. And I think that there's great opportunities there, as we talked about a month ago, that the opportunities to go deeper, the opportunities for more discipleship, the opportunities for more relational development that can take place in the summer. Maybe the balance is redefining what results look like. And maybe in redefining what those results look like, part of those results are getting our leadership and our people healthy for August, or getting our leadership and healthy for September.
Oh, I don't argue that. I'm just saying that, like, it's things that are maybe broken inside of my brain or my leadership and some stuff like that I'm going, okay, how do you navigate some of this, and what's the step look like?
So with all of that and everything that we've talked about a couple of weeks ago and already today, how do you fight the temptation that comes in summer for everyone in leadership to coast?
I was reading I know we've been talking about, like, some of these podcasts that we watch, and do, and sometimes they just sit and there's a ton of silence. I was reading in Acts, and I was really convicted inside of this, because it was one of these spaces and moments where I was just kind of looking at, like, listening to, and they were doing these things, and Acts 6, and people were getting frustrated because, the Gentile people weren't They weren't,
They
widows
weren't
and orphans were
following the
getting
Jewish-
getting taken care of, and the Jewish word, blah blah blah, and all these things, and the thing that I was kind of, and it said, so we're going to find people to basically wait tables.
No. Paul says he basically says it wouldn't be worth my time to wait on tables.
Yeah. And I mean, and so,
it sounds incredibly arrogant.
It does. But the thing,
it's not what he meant.
No. But like the thing that I was processing through it is in a space where you're really kind of I was stepping back and I'm just looking and I was praying through those verses and I'm going, okay, I know that's not what the scriptures mean, because there's nothing that, like we're called to be servants above all. Love, be a servant, that, Jesus, the very nature of a servant, which I think I actually said in the last episode. And I just thought, man, like I need to not get caught up and hung up in any of the things that are going on. But people who show up in the summer tend to be pretty faithful and committed to what's going on. And I need to look at the things of what everybody's got a role. And what's the role, and how do I lean in to, instead of going, hey, here's the 100%, and I'm frustrated, maybe, and I'm not saying I am. I'm growing. I've grown in those things a lot. 10 years ago, I would have been hopping mad, like, oh, where are all these people at? Do they not love Jesus? And it's like, well, none of them got paid to be here today, Robert. So they all, they worked 5-6 other days this week, and they went on a vacation for a one-day thing. And so grow up. But it's one of those things, if the people who are showing up pretty substantially in the summer, 60% of the time, they're pretty invested and they're probably high-level leaders. And how are you encouraging, equipping, and helping them find the spot that they fit best? And so that was something even today, like opening up the Bible this morning and reading through these verses and just processing and praying through, like, what do I need to know? What I need to know it, what I need to do, what I need to do it type thing. And I just kind of thought, man, maybe I need to kind of reflect in this a little bit differently. So for me, that was kind of where I was. What about you?
I think it's always reminding myself of why I started doing this. I can remember back my very first summer internship that I did. And it was unpaid. And I went to the church. And the first time after about 3-4 weeks of doing this summer internship that I was given the opportunity to teach a Bible study. And man, as an 18-year-old, 19-year-old kid who wanted nothing more in life than to do youth ministry, I was a nervous wreck. And it was the middle of summer, and it was hot, and it was outside. And I had like 6 middle school boys that were in a circle around me. And it meant the world to me. I prepared and practiced and studied and researched and gave everything that I had for those 6 middle school boys sitting outside on a park bench on a picnic table. And I just knew that what I was doing right there was going to change the world for those 6 middle school boys. And now 25 years later, I get discouraged because there's not 300 people in the room. Maybe there's 60 people in the room because it's summer. And so I think it's going back to, why did I start this? Why did I start doing this? What was the call? Was the call to a mega church, or was the call simply just to teach people about Jesus? Was the call to lead hundreds or thousands, or was the call simply just to make disciples? If that's 1 or 100, if that's 2 or 25 or 250, what is that? And so in summer, you teach. Even if it's 10 people, you lead like someone's life may depend on it, because it just might. You never know who's going to walk into your doors on a summer Sunday morning that might not be there any other Sunday of the year.
Yeah, I mean, you're actually teaching our summer series with me. Most of our summer series, we finished it up with a couple weeks before school starts back, and I think that's the thing, is every week, you and I both have walked in there, and there was never a thought of what happens if there's only 10 people Do we just, because sometimes if you have 100 students and it ends up being fall break for 3 of the schools you've got, and you've got 10 kids there, you might load up and go to Sonic, and you kind of change everything around. There's not been any thoughts about the fact of that, like, oh, if we get there today and there's only 10 people, we're just going to load up, go to McDonald's and get some pancakes and sit around and hang out for a little bit. I mean, it's always this thought and idea of, hey, we're going to teach, we're going to open up the scriptures today. We're going to walk through that. We're going to sing together. We're going to worship together. We're going to learn and grow in what God's saying and step in. And I think that's just this incredible kind of, like letting go of these weird weights that we've carried that create this in kind of odd resentment sometimes towards other people, towards other churches, all these other things. And it lets us kind of like, I'm trying to think of the word. Now, I think I've got 3 different translations running through my head, but to kind of shed or lay aside the burdens that we were never designed to carry, and to take on the yoke of Jesus that's easy, burden is light, and to lean into what what God's calling us to. And again, and all I can speak to is America. I've not traveled the world. I don't know a lot of other spaces. And it's just sometimes this broken American church mentality of, bigger, faster, stronger, better type of thinking. So, yeah. So, you got any other thoughts on that kind of place? I think we need to do a commercial.
We do need to do a commercial. That's a great thought.
Yeah.
Empowering leaders, enriching lives. That's the heart of Hire Ministry. They're dedicated to equipping Christian leaders with the tools and resources they need to thrive in their calling. Whether you're looking for leadership development, strategic planning, or community outreach strategies, Hire Ministries is here to help. Visit hireministries.com to learn more and thank them for sponsoring our podcast.
So we've talked through the good, the bad, and the ugly kind of stuff, the good, the bad, the hard. And so let's do this. We'll look at this from 4 perspectives: adults, students, kids, and mission, and heading out and doing, serving and things. Like, what's something, let's start with adults. What's some wins? If you could step back and kind of go, hey, if I could encourage pastors and church leaders, here's a win kind of inside of adult ministry that could do. What's a couple of wins that maybe you would think of?
I love the idea of connecting families in the summer, that pulling families together, and it's an opportunity that you have unlike any other time during the year. The weather's nice. You can get outside. You can do some things different. You can have opportunities to get children and parents and children and old people and young people together and really work on building families that continue the ministry the other 7 days or the other 6 days of the week.
I need your week. I need an extra day.
I need it too. How about you?
I always love the idea, and I don't do a great job of this right now. And I'm just being honest. I love the idea of changing summer up, getting some things that I love the interest group idea, or affinity groups, I think is what some people call it. I love the idea of those 2 things, of doing some things that are different, connecting people who maybe wouldn't normally, like, it's very hard sometimes. Like when you and I have done ministry a long time, and people listening have done it a long time as well, I'm sure. And when you're signing groups up from August through May, and it's like, hey, we've got a small group. It's going to be meeting from August to December. They'll take a month off kind of over Christmas and New Year. And then late January, they'll kind of kick back in and go through right before Memorial Day and then take summer off. And you're setting up those 2 groups. People are kind of going, if I'm 60, I'm not looking to be in a group with 22 to 27-year-old young married couples that I'm not the leader. I'm just attending and hanging out. And maybe your church is that way, and that's awesome. But the vast majority of people are going, I want to be with like-minded, like same phase of life people. So I love the fact of that when you're doing golf, a golf group or a board game group or a hiking group or a fishing group or whatever that might be, and people kind of roll in, it just gives them a chance to go, oh, that 22-year-old likes golfing and I like golfing. And that's fun. That's a good time. That's a great way to hang out. And so I think that's a fun thing. I really like that. And I'm just all about like, how do we simplify? I'm almost, I don't want to say I'm anti, but I'm almost anti-event. I'm just not. I'd rather do events with your group. I hate trying to put big church things together, but some leadership has really said, hey, we would love to see this. And so we have done a couple, and they've been incredibly well attended, and it's created some great connection and things like that. And so I would say in the summer, don't try and do something every other week. Don't
overprogram.
Do one good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. One good thing over 5 mediocre things. I heard a pastor one time, and I'm not saying I fully agree with all this, but it's like, the reason somebody said, why do you just do one service a week instead of doing Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night? Why do you just do Sunday morning? And he's like, because they were like, man, well, Sunday morning we have 2 things. And he's like, well, because I don't want to do the same thing worse each time. And that's, and on some levels it's true.
Yeah.
Like you teach a little worse Bible study on Sunday night than you preached on Sunday morning. You teach a little worse one on Wednesday night because you just don't have enough time. And then you've got Sunday school. And as a pastor in a lot of those churches, you're having to teach a Sunday school class as well. So you're writing 4 sermons a week plus a men's group plus you're doing 4, 5, 6 lessons a week. You just don't have enough time. And so you're better off to do one really well, and then equip other people to go out and build those relationships to move the analogy back to that. So what about students? It's a world we've both lived in quite a bit.
Yeah, that's tough for me because as we talked about last time, I've always struggled with the fact that a lot of student ministries shut down in the summer. And for me, in my years in student ministry, it was when I really ramped up because the kids were out of school. You had them. Parents wanted them out of the house. And so I did a lot in our student ministry. I thought it was an incredible opportunity to really, they can either be spending all of their time at home, and the world's a lot different now. When I was doing student ministry, you didn't have the social media stuff that you have now.
Streaming platforms and all these things.
Yeah.
And we talked about travel sports already, and kids are incredibly busy. Like I was talking to a dad just at Colby's game this weekend, and he said that his son's high school team is doing like workouts like 4 days a week. And I'm going, that was
illegal. You weren't allowed to do that.
Bonkers. Yeah.
I'm running basketball practice one day a week right now. And when I was in high school, that wasn't allowed to happen. The coaches weren't allowed to be around the players during the summer. Now everything's changed. And so when I was doing student ministry in the early 2000s, my thought was they can either be sitting at home out getting in trouble with their friends, or they can be here at the church doing stuff. And so I think I ran through kind of our schedule that I programmed last time, that we had something almost every day of the week, from Monday movie matinees where we would get together and go see a matinee movie that cost $1. Tuesday was our AWOL day that we talked some about before. Wednesday night, we had our 242 in the park. We were doing something almost every day, and not everyone came to everything. Some came to everything, but everyone came to something, and then we did 2 big retreats in the summer. We did a week-long conference, and then because not everyone could afford to or take a week to do that, we did a smaller weekend retreat in the summer as well. So summer was absolutely jam-packed. I was more tired. I needed a vacation at the end of summer more so than I did coming into summer, because in student ministries for me, summer was my pedal to the metal. It was my amped up to 10, whereas in adult ministries, it was really a time to kind of scale back and tune back some.
I have pretty much always, not every church, but the vast majority of churches, I've always stopped what would be called typically Wednesday night programming. So we didn't have the normal Bible study and things like that. I think that I've done more than I realized, like as far as programming things go. Like I had a Bible study that guys were in, a guy's Bible study that we hosted at a house and things. I think I've mentioned that. Like a kid in a wheelchair, he couldn't really get out and do a ton of the other things we did. And so a bunch of us we'd just go to his house and we would have this video game thing. And then we had pizza and cookies and things like that. And we would watch a Bible, we'd watch a video and talk about the Bible and go through some things, and then we'd play video games together and hang out. And so we heard about Jesus, then we shot each other in the face for a while. I think I've mentioned like we did these crazy by-season passes to Six Flags, and we would get up and we'd meet at the church at like 4 a.m., 5 a.m., and we would drive all the way to Atlanta, go to Six Flags, and get back at like midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning. We did that every week for like 8 straight weeks.
Wow.
And so we do those types of things.
Insanity.
It was, but I would rather have done that. And most of our students agreed. They're like, we can do 1 day a week, but trying to jump and balance, our parents want us to get jobs or we have this, and this, but they will let us take every Thursday off. And I said, done. And Melissa actually talks about still like we love like America's Got Talent and things. But Melissa's like, I still get anxiety when America's Got Talent comes on. And because that was the show, it was coming on Wednesday nights back then. And it was the show that would come on, and she would have to, that was going on while we were trying to go to sleep, getting ready for the next morning when I was going to have to get up at 3 a.m. and go. So anyway, I love those things and doing some things like that. Melissa's always led like a girls group. We've done some things like pool parties and that kind of stuff. So we did always have some things, but it probably didn't feel quite as structured and as intense as maybe a couple of the things that you were doing. And so for me, I've always kind of been more about with students, how do you kind of do some things that create a connection? And so I still have students that'll occasionally message me on Facebook or do something. And
hey, it's Thursday.
Almost. And they'll be
I got my season pass.
Like me and so were hanging out the other day, and we just talked about how much fun we had. And we know that was, now that we're older, we understand how crazy that was, because they're my age. When my age then, they're that age now. And so, you go back 20 years with some of this stuff. And so I was in my late 20s, and these kids are in their late 20s, early 30s now. And they're like, we understand how crazy that was. And we understand the sacrifice because we have kids that are the age of your kids. And we are so grateful because those are some of the best memories we have of our high school career. And it gave us a chance to talk and to laugh. And we rode on buses, we watched movies, and we talked about all these things. And it was just some incredible moments. So you don't have to go that crazy. I don't recommend what I did, by the way. If you live in Atlanta, get a season pass.
Still don't recommend going once a week with a group of teenagers. Yeah.
By the way, total sidebar. When do you think an amusement park should go to weekends only?
Never.
Well, just the reality is, unless you're Disney or Dollywood. No, I think Dollywood actually does it for a little bit.
Dollywood does it for quite a bit.
And so, like, when do you think they should do that? What's the earliest you think they should do it?
January.
So we were looking at going to a Braves game, and Melissa just grew up at Six Flags, and I love Six Flags. It was one of the first amusement parks I went to. My favorite roller coaster is there. And so we were looking at maybe in August when Landon gets home, the 5 of us just running down, catching like a day or two in Atlanta and catching a Braves game and going to Six Flags. In August, like all of August, Six Flags goes to Saturday, Sunday only.
That's ridiculous.
That is bonkers to me in August that is where they are.
That's ridiculous.
So kids ministry, children's ministry, however you say that. I heard somebody say one time, it's like, we don't serve goats. So it's children's ministry, not kids ministry. But
it's like, remember back in the early 2000s, you couldn't say youth ministry. That was insulting. It was student ministry. Student groups.
And so I probably say student more because I just heard student ministry. I wasn't a youth
pastor. I was a student ministry pastor.
Yeah.
So, I wasn't a student pastor because that made it sound like you were like an intern or something. I was student ministries pastor.
So serving in kids children's ministry, what's some summer? I mean, this would not be mine and your cup of tea.
Yeah, it's really not.
But I think we've both been lead pastors in a church, and we've both been student pastors. So we've partnered and worked in alongside those things.
Yeah, two things I would say is that I come back to what I said about the adult ministry is that I think summer is a great time to incorporate the families.
Yeah.
And so pulling the kids in with their parents for things, doing some specific intentional programming where you are pulling families together. And that can be on Sunday mornings. A lot of your children's workers are probably going to be gone a lot of the time. When attendance is down, your children's workers are gone.
Yeah.
And so some creative things to do there to really try to bring families together. But then the thing that's especially huge out here, it's not big out west, but out here is summer VBS. Right?
Oh, yeah.
I looked ahead to the outline, and you wrote the outline for this episode this week, and you're going to be asking the same thing in just a minute about missions. For me, I always kind of frowned on the VBS that was so internal. That so many small churches, their VBS, they only promote it to their own church, and the only people that come are the kids that come. And so you have these volunteers that put all this time and effort into this week-long program or however they structure it, and it's only for your kids. I think that can be a church's number one summer mission is their VBS program. You've got parents out there, like I was saying before with student ministries, that are looking for ways to get their kids out of the house. They're looking for opportunities and they're going through. It used to be the newspaper. Now it's Google and looking for what churches are doing what. It is an incredible opportunity.
Local Christian radio stations actually run a list, and you can go in and put yours on there, and it shows every VBS that's happening for the church. And so you can, I know people who literally in the South, and if anybody listening is from the South or you kind of are there, you know this, like they literally like every week are dropping their kids off at a different VBS all summer long. And I think it was John Christ I was listening to, might have been Nate, but I think it was John Christ. And he was like, my mom was the most like, we are, I don't remember what he said, Baptist. We are Baptist, and this is what it is. And he's like, when it came to summer, we were whatever had a free babysitter for 5 days for my mom. It's like, she's like, we're going here. It's like, but Mom, we aren't even Lutheran. She's like, this week you are. You shut up and go in here and do it. And so that is a very Southern thing of like, and so, so if that's something that you don't necessarily do, and things like I valued being with my kids, and I know you do too. So I never wanted them gone that many nights and stuff. But we would do our church, and we might want more if they had a really good friend that said, hey, can you come and hang out a couple of nights, or can you do this week with me? We'd drop them off and let them go, and it was always fun. But I agree. I think it's one thing I miss. And honestly, I'm not heavily involved with our summer camp. We typically do, and we've talked about this before, Camp Amp. It's a 1 week music camp. Think Camp Rock meets High School Musical meets, it is incredible. It is really, really good. We write original skits and scripts that move through things. Kids learn to literally play an instrument at a low to high level, depending upon their skill set. Like, we will take them as fast and far as they can go in a 5-day stretch from Sunday to Thursday. And then they do a concert on Friday night, and parents come in and rooms filled, and every band, like 9 bands plus a couple of dance teams, rotate through, and we play full songs and they sing, and they're typically Sunday morning worship songs. So people will sing along while they're taking videos and doing things, and it's awesome. It is an incredible night. And as soon after year 2 of that, when it started 15 years ago, like, we almost had a hard time getting our church people into it because outsiders were wanting in because it is that good.
Yeah.
And so I agree with what you're saying. And I'm sure our staff, our family ministry staff, is doing an incredible job of incorporating to the outside. I have no clue. I am not involved with that part a whole lot. We're not able to do Camp Amp this year. Just some glitches in our system with some health issues and things like that, with some things that we've got going on. And so our church isn't able to pull that together this year. But yeah, I agree with you 100%. And I think the family is way underutilized. You can do so many fun things, go to a local park and do I hate potlucks, but do a potluck and, order some pizzas, have people bring desserts and watermelon.
You don't like chicken casserole?
I hate all the potlucks. And it's not so much that I hate the food, it's that I don't know who made it. And so I'm typically walking around going, okay, who made this?
Yeah, that's a rough one.
And then I'm there. I'm just, man, I'm telling you, I just can't handle it. But I was, and you can play yard games and stuff are so easy and movable now. I mean, you don't have to just go out and play horseshoes. I mean, there's literally, because when I was a kid, that was like the only yard game, like horseshoes and badminton.
Do you ever wonder who invented cornhole and how much are they worth?
Man, we were watching the other day, and I say we because my whole family will settle around and watch these things. A couple weeks ago, and this has been since we recorded, so we haven't talked about this, they had a national cornhole thing on, and there was a 9-year-old kid that flat took the second best player in the country and tore him up.
My wife got me a cornhole set for my birthday. It was my birthday a couple of weeks ago, and she got me a cornhole set for my birthday. And she had this great vision that we would be outside playing it. We set it up in our family room, and me and my son have had an ongoing tournament. Like at first it was best 4 out of 7, then it was best 7 out of 10, then it was best 25 out of 100, then it was best 3,000 out of 12,000. And I mean, we're just going, and we've gotten incredibly good at cornhole from 9 feet away.
We'll see how that translates.
That's right, 27 feet or whatever it is.
Yeah. So I think the family thing about it is setting up some fun games like that, playing some, you got to be able to help people. If you've got older elementary kids playing like a wiffle ball game or some kickball, and get the adults to not be so crazy. Invite their small group. Or, if you call it Sunday school, small groups, whatever, invite those people out. I mean, find a way that they don't necessarily have to bring anything because of how much they invest. Hey, would you just want to come hang out? And you can kind of experience life with some of these families and things and just have fun and play a goofy game and let kids pitch and let everybody have a good time. And you just do some things to where you build those relationships. We talked a little bit about mission. I'll kind of echo my part. I love going away on mission trips. I love like local, national, international. I think they're all amazing because I think that one, the scriptures teach it, and two, I think that it builds so much character. And what your friends from Australia said, so true. If you can inspire something in somebody that they bring it back home, that's my only thing. How do you bring it back home? And if you spend all this time and effort and money to send kids to whether it's 5 hours away or 45 hours away, is that even possible? Can you get 45?
I don't think you can get, walking.
Walk on
by
water.
Car.
Yeah. They're building a bridge from the United States to Europe. But so I don't care.
Canoe.
Yeah. 10 hours. Whether you're a couple hours away, 5 hours away, 10, 12 hours away, whatever that is. Like I just, if you're going to take the time to schedule all that, take some time, even if it's just something as simple as getting some popsicles, asking a few of your families to meet at a local park, and just hand out popsicles to kids playing and have conversations. Hey, tell me your story. Like, oh, hey, that's cool. Like, our kids are out there playing and, we're just giving out popsicles because, oh, why are you doing this? Well, we love Jesus and we just want to be kind to people and do something that we know it's hot. And here we go. It's 114 degrees and we're out here playing with our kids because we've all been home too much. So tell me your story. What do you do? And I think there's just a way to build some relationships. We had a guy this morning walk in looking for coffee, and we have some amazing cafe people. Your family's a part of that. But when we get there early, our coffee pot, it's one of those buns, has to be plugged in and warm up. And I typically go, I'm just make a pot of coffee. And me and a couple of the worship guys are usually drinking a cup or two. And this guy walks in, I was like, bakery. I said, church or bakery? That's always my question. And he's like, bakery. And I was like, they are closed on Sundays. And he's like, is there any coffee? And I said, I'm more than happy to give you a cup of coffee. We have coffee. I said, but it's just a styrofoam cup of coffee. It's nothing fancy. And I was like, you want some cream? And I brought it out. And he's like, oh, that has sugar in it. I don't want that. I said, that's cool. Not a problem. And he said, I'll just drink it black. And so, but he just wanted some coffee. But in that, one of our deacons and one of our church members she shows up crazy early, always. And we just sit around and we talk and have a good conversation. And they both just really engaged this guy. I was talking about the Rhododendron Festival, and he was out riding his motorcycle, and he just lives local. And he's like, my girlfriend's asleep, and I was out riding around and doing these things. And I just thought, what a cool way to kind of invest and be in. And I'm going, those are things that you can do. And like, I walked away for a second, get his coffee. I came back out, and he's like, it's so hot. And she's like, but you're from Florida. And he's like, I'm not really from Florida. I live there. And I'm going, how did you all get that deep into that conversation? All I did was literally pour a cup of coffee and walk right back out the door. And so, I think for me, that's the thing, is bring the missions home and find ways to engage your families and your people into something that's local that they can make a real impact with, not just send them off and then feel good and come home and go, that lasts me for a year.
Love it. It's good stuff, man.
Yeah. We want to end with something fun?
Go for it. What do you got for me?
I think we're going to, this might be something we see come up a time or two. Let's do a little rapid fire.
I'm in.
All right. Summer Sundays. Are you, do you wear like short sleeves, or do you like put on long sleeves and sweat it out?
Oh, I'm short sleeves.
See, I wear hoodies until it gets too hot, and then I typically have a t-shirt with a button-up shirt over top of it all the time. So more pressure. This may not be a fair question. I don't think there's anything close, but some people might feel this way. Easter or summer kickoff?
Oh, Easter.
I think Easter's a lot. I don't really kick off summer. That might be a terrible, terrible thing. What's the worst summer flop you ever had?
Oh, I was a lifeguard, and I jumped off the high dive and went to do wrong kind of flop.
Wrong flop. Yeah.
Oh, I think I told the story in our last episode that we tried to do an entire whole church Wednesday night ministry thing that we put all of our staff on, and it bombed. Had a church of 1,000 people, and we had like 6 people come. Yeah.
I had a similar
and
thing.
Most of those were my kids.
I think that's the thing. If you've done ministry, you're typically not going to look back. Most people are going to go like, I had this really event. I thought it was super cool. And then it just didn't go from there. So if you could delete one summer program forever, what would it be?
Water balloon fights. Hate water balloon fights.
I think I've told this story before too. When the first church I worked at full time, military community, and so we did this boot camp, like D-Now weekend, like lock-in type thing every not D-Now, but like lock-in. And so like kids would all show up with their military stuff on. All my military buddies would come in, and they were like yelling at kids, doing the whole military thing. And we would go out at 2 a.m. There was a couple of lights in the parking lot, and we would have, I think the last year we had like 5,000 or 6,000 water balloons, and we would do water balloon wars for like 2 hours.
Twitching.
I mean, it got pretty aggressive. Like we started buying like the balloon launchers and stuff. And so you'd have this little kid, this little 6th grader that weighs like 11 pounds soaking wet. You'd have 3 like linebackers that are pulling this balloon launcher back. You'd catch a kid in the chest, like literally.
Yeah, but see, I know right now from your story right now that you were not in leadership at that time, because the fight part of it is great. Why I said water balloon fights is because you spend 8 hours filling the water balloons, then it's 45 seconds in the fight, and then 15 hours going back in the dark with a flashlight picking up all the little pieces of rubber balloon that have broken all over the place.
Here was the beautiful thing. So if you ever have to do this again, my military guys taught me this. It's called a FOD walk, foreign object debris. And they said, here's what we're doing, people. And everybody would get out there, and you would reach out and you would touch fingers. And basically, I think they said it was like, reach your arms out and your elbow. So your hand should touch their elbows. So you're a little closer than just fingertips apart. And they said, we're walking a straight line. And those military guys, like 3 or 4 of them would get, and they would march these kids, and they all had a little trash bag, and they would pick up the stuff. And we did it in like 5 minutes. It was awesome, like a football field, and we would do it in like 5 minutes. But we also had like, I mean, this was an event that kids came to. So, I probably would say, and I struggle with this sometimes, I about would cancel VBS just because I think they've been done really, really close, poorly. So, what's a dream like summer church staff retreat location?
Dodger Stadium.
That's a pretty good one.
Take the ballpark tour.
Oh my goodness.
See the locker rooms, go in the dugout, have a great conversation about teamwork and leadership and how it all comes together. Everybody plays a critical part.
You want Dave Roberts
come out. Have Joe Davis and Oral Hershiser come and give a little pep talk. Kurt Gibson come out and talk about, and then we'll sit and maybe catch a game. Have a Dodger dog or two.
You don't even care at that point if you see the game. If you had all the other stuff, you're fine missing the game at that point in time. Man, we had this it's called on a bayou, and these this house was incredible. And if you could, like this family that owned it, and we would go there for a bunch of things. If you could rent that out as an Airbnb, that would be a place that I would want to go, just overlooking the bay and stuff. And it was just really, really cool. So, one thing you wish somebody had told you about summer ministry when you were first getting started.
Summer exposes whether we trust God or attendance.
I mean, I think that the conversation is that, and like love people, not metrics.
Yep.
Type of situation. So, what is one thing that could happen between now and the end of the year, not ministry related, that would make this the best summer yet?
My daughter gets married in 33 days. And that's a ministry in and of itself, trying to coordinate everything that needs to happen with that and get done with that. And it's 3.5 hours away from here. And so we're trying to book an Airbnb right now that's big enough for everybody that's going to be going on with our little group down there for that. And if we can survive that, if we can get through that, and my daughter feels loved and like a princess, and
no one's murdered,
and I'm still married, it'll be a great summer. Yeah.
I think we've talked about this before. I didn't grow up in a vacation family. We might every 3 years go to amusement park, spend the night or something like that. Something that would, we were talking about the Atlanta thing. I think just my family could use just a couple of days to reset and to exhale. Maybe a Sunday, kind of a Sunday off. We would love to be in Atlanta, go to like Passion City and catch a Braves game, maybe go to Six Flags and some things like that. And so that would be a pretty incredible space for us that would make it really, really good. Anything else?
That's all I got, man. Why don't you roll us out of here?
Hey, thanks for joining us today as we do this. And I think the thing is that as you're listening to this and you're thinking about your summer, what if summer isn't about surviving? What if it's simply about surrendering and not worrying about the metrics, but just stepping into this space of letting God do something really fresh and unique in your church at a time where things can be sometimes feel crazy, but really you've got this simplicity of less things happening. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for sitting on the porch. Enjoy your summer. Check us out on social media, and we cannot wait to have the next conversation, which you are going to love, because there's a couple of fun guests to join us on the porch in the next episode. So don't miss that. We will talk to you soon.